Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this council meeting. North Hertfordshire Council would like to join the whole nation and the royal family in mourning the death of Her Majesty the Queen. On behalf of all of our residents, we would like to express our deepest sympathies with the royal family. As the longest serving monarch of British history, Her Majesty the Queen devoted her life to our country and was a symbol of unity, strength, and hope for us all. On Sunday, the 11th of September, as Vice Chair, I hosted the proclamation for King Charles III by the flagpole outside of the council offices. I was joined by the leader, deputy leader, the managing director, and leaders of all parties. I'd like to say thank you to the members, community leaders, and district officials that joined me there. The council passes on its best wishes to our new king, who we must remember has taken on his role at a time when he has just lost his mother. Please join me for a minute's silence in memory of Her Majesty the Queen. Thank you. I would now like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officers to update you on the systems being used and to confirm that officers in remote attendance are present.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just check that we have our officers in the Zoom call. Do we have Ian Cooper?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm here.
Thank you. And Anthony Roach?
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. This meeting is being audio recorded and filmed and live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. The recordings will be available to view on the Council's website and YouTube channels after the meeting has ended. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on their microphone units. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. The normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No, I will hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Louis. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from councillors Sam North, Sean Prendergast, Morgan Derbyshire, Adam Majiro-Shaka, Amy Allen, Gerald Morris, Terry Tyler, Terry Hone, Ian Moody. Are there any others? Councillor Simon Bloxham.
I think we've got, sorry, did you mention Gerald Morris, Councillor Morris?
I did, yes.
Thank you.
And Councillor Brown?
Did you mention Raj Bakar?
I did not.
Can you please add her apologies? And also, can I give apologies from Carol Stanier, who hopes to join us, but is going to be late due to the problems with the trains.
Thank you very much.
On that.
Lisa Nash was not on that.
Sorry, Lisa Nash as well.
Minutes of the 14th of July 2022. I propose we take as read and approve as a true record of proceedings the minutes of the meeting of the 14th of July 2022. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dennis Harbour.
There we go. Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Strong.
Yes, you'll have noticed in the minutes that Councillor Adam Compton was allegedly there and also apologised. I would like to say that he was not at the meeting. You weren't there. And also, just a small little grumble on my part. I spell Claire with an I, and I'm very disappointed to suddenly find that all the way through the votes that we took, my name has been spelt without my I, and I'm very partial that I do have an I. There's about 11 occurrences when, thanks to committee services, they've managed to spell my name wrong. And after 26 or 27 years, I really had hoped that they would get it right. So,
Well, I am sure that they will be able to update that for you.
I actually, Chairman, I think it's all been because when it comes up on the screen, which I don't know, actually, I'm showing as Councillor Daniel. Oh, there. See, now they have put the I into my name, and I think that might be. And I have been asking ever since we had this system to have my name corrected. So finally, I am now Claire with an I. So thank you.
Taking that as something that will be changed, are we happy to vote on the minutes, please?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. Notifications of other business, I have none. Chair's announcements. Audio recording. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recordings will be available to view on mod.gov and video via YouTube after the meeting. Climate emergency. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency. This is a serious decision and means that as this is an emergency, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of this district. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Rules of debate. Please can I remind you that the normal procedure rules in respect of debate and time to speak will apply. No speeches may be made after the mover has moved a proposal and explained the purpose of it until the motion has been seconded. When seconding a motion or amendment, a member may reserve their speech until later in the debate. In accordance with the Constitution, please can members ensure that no speech exceeds 5 minutes without the consent of the chair. Number 5. Farewell to our committee member and scrutiny manager. As you will all know, Will, the committee member and scrutiny manager, has very sadly decided to leave in order to be closer to his family. He may have only been with us for a short time. However, those 2 years have been a very challenging time. Will started with Northants as a committee member and scrutiny officer in September of 2020 during COVID. He had to learn his new job virtually. In August 2021, he was promoted to the manager role. There has been a lot of change in this time, such as the end of the flexibility regulations, adapting to streaming and conducting meetings on a virtual platform, along with other hybrid options. Not to mention having to recruit a new team. When Will started as the manager, the team only had 1.5 committee officers. A half? At the same time as adapting to the new role as the manager. Recently, Will have been instrumental in the development and delivery of the members' induction programme. As members, we rely heavily on the committee member and scrutiny services team. And on behalf of us all, I would like to express our appreciation for your hard work and wish you every success in your new venture, wherever the path should lead. Thank you, Will. In remembrance of former councillor Nigel Agar. It's with great sadness that we remember former district and county councillor Nigel Agar, who passed away on the 20th of July, 2022. Nigel served as a district councillor for 11 years, from 1991 to 2002, and as a county councillor from 1993 till 2009. He was vice chairman of the council in 1998-9, and sat in a wide range of committees. Nigel was a pillar of our community. He taught history at North Hertfordshire College, volunteered regularly at the Hertfordshire Archives and Local Studies Library, and penned a regular feature in the Comet, On Foot with Nigel Agar. We thank Councillor Agar for his services to the council and wish his family all the best in this sad time. Please join me in a minute's silence in his memory. Thank you. Comfort breaks. I intend to call a comfort break somewhere between 8:30 and 9, depending how the meeting flows, if you'll pardon the pun. Public participation, we have none. Questions from members, we have none. Notice of motions, we have none. Items referred from other committees. We have a referral from Southern Rural Area Committee on the 30th of June 2022 on the closure of Kimpton Surgery. Can I invite Councillor George Davies to present the referral from the Southern Rural Committee?
Thank you, Chair. This was an item brought up during our Ward Matters section of Southern Rural, and so if it's okay by you, I feel it's appropriate to invite Councillor Munser to present this item.
Councillor Munser.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As stated within the report on this item, the issue of the Kimpton surgery was discussed 3 months ago at the Southern Rural Committee, which was held on the 30th of June. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank members of the committee for their interest on this important topic to residents in Kimpton. During those 3 months, there have been a number of significant and substantial developments on this matter, and I can confirm to colleagues that Kimpton Surgery finally closed its doors on the 31st of August after serving patients for many years. I can report to the council that residents are still able to access NHS services in Harpenden, Wheathampstead, Whitwell and Welwyn, all of which have longer opening hours and therefore more available appointments. Like me, I know that many were concerned about the impact this decision would have on those who rely on public transport. And as members who represent rural communities will know, connectivity is vital. I'm pleased, therefore, that vulnerable and elderly patients will continue to receive home visits. And on the wider point of connectivity, I'm working closely alongside County Councillor Thake to push for enhanced public transport provision in Kimpton, ensuring residents continue to be connected to wider Hertfordshire and beyond. If any residents in Kimpton needs information or support about registering with a new GP surgery, I encourage them to get in touch with me and I will do all I can to provide assistance to them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Richard Thake.
I mean, just a little technical point, and I hope I'm not mistaken here, but the report from Southern Rural refers to the decision of the National Health Service to close the surgery. I know this is neither here nor there now, it's actually happened, but the individual surgeries, of course, are the responsibilities of the partnerships that own them. And it was not the National Health Service per se that decided to close it, but the clinical commissioning group refusing to fund the additional cash that was needed for that particular partnership to run. This small technical thing, but one would like to get these things correct. As I say, it matters not one way or another. Now it's closed, and clearly, Councillor Munster, myself, the parish council, and a host of residents in that area have fought long and hard to try and reverse this situation. It wasn't to be, and that is to be regretted. Let us hope as we go forward that those people who are vulnerable and find it difficult to travel to those wider flung facilities are not entirely put into a difficult position. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much to Councillor Munster, through you, Chair, for the excellent news update on matters that were prevalent on the 30th of June 2022, and also for updating us on the news occurring on the 31st of August 2022, on this day, the 22nd of September 2022. I hear the points that are being made about the service that is provided to our rural residents in healthcare. And I would query whether there is some action or support that the councillors wish or need colleagues in this place to take to assist these residents, or if this item is more of a news update on matters that occurred over the summer in Kempton.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Quite surprised to see this item. Heartened to see Councillor Munster raising this because it is an important issue. But under the Conservative government, the number of GP surgeries closing across the country has gone through the roof. And sadly, Kimpton is just the latest in this trend. Hundreds of surgeries like this have been closing, and it's really surprising that Councillor Munster hasn't noted that trend, that most of these cuts are happening as a result of the actions of the government run by the party he is a member of. However, many of these closures are because of surgery is no longer financially viable. And that is as a direct result of the cuts, and practices are forced to merge, as has happened with the one in Kimpton. And that means residents of Kimpton now find themselves being directed to a surgery in Welwyn, which is an utterly unacceptable situation. In the case of the Kimpton closure, the building was deemed unfit for purpose because it was not in compliance with the Equality Act of 2010, because some, but not all, of the rooms that they used to see patients were up some steep stairs. So rather than rectify that situation, it was deemed the right thing to do was to close the surgery and force the residents of Kimpton to get on a bus service, or however they choose to go to Welwyn or a far-flung village, which is really unacceptable for those people, particularly those the Equality Act is designed to protect. So it seems that no common sense has been applied in this situation, and I applaud the work done by Councillors Fake and Munster on this. However, it does seem that there is a really big argument here to improve the reach of the Herts Links bus service, a fantastic service introduced by this council with Herts County Council funding. And I'm surprised that Councillor Fake hasn't actually opened up the wallet, so to speak, of the county council to roll this out, which is something I think this council should fully support, because extending that public transport service would be really valuable to our rural communities in the south as a district, as we're finding elsewhere in the district. So another factor on this is that as a result of the Conservatives' deeply flawed local plan, the demand on surgeries in areas like Kimpton will go up. So it does seem very short-sighted by the CCG to close a facility like this. But another reason that this surgery was called for closure was the CCG didn't like the idea of GPs and staff working on their own in the surgery. And that's a wider problem because there's not enough GPs coming through the system in the UK. But all of these problems are not problems for this council to face. These are problems for the government to face and for the MP locally, rather than writing a few short-worded letters.
You have 1 minute left on your soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. But these problems are not within the remit of this council to fix. So what I would suggest that we do, and Chair, this is a little bit up to you how we handle this, because I'm not sure if we can make a recommendation or this needs to be proposed or seconded. I'll leave that up to you. It could be dealt with informally. But I think that we should urge the council leader, the deputy leader, and the managing director to write to the Herts and West Essex NHS organisation to highlight these issues, to also lean on the county council to improve the Herts Link service to the south of the district, and also write to the Secretary of State for Health and highlight problems with access to GP surgeries across North Hertfordshire. And I think this is something that the council could do, but direct changes to protect GP surgeries are beyond the remit of North Hertfordshire District Council, unfortunately.
Thank you, Sam. Councillor Val Bryant.
Thank you. I have the honour of being the North Herts member of the Hertfordshire Health Scrutiny Committee. And when I received the information from Councillor Munson and Councillor Fake, I contacted Natalie Rotherham, who's the head of scrutiny, to ask whether this had been discussed at the Health Scrutiny Committee. And I got an email back this afternoon to say that access to GPs are being considered over a series of meetings by the Health Scrutiny Committee. A topic group met to review in greater detail, which reported this time last year, October 2021. Recommendations were monitored by the Impact of Scrutiny Advisory Committee. Rural GP surgeries have not been separately discussed. GP access is of concern to the Health Scrutiny Committee Chairman and Vice Chairs, who recently met with the ICB, that's Integrated Care Board, led to outline their concerns. As a member of the committee, I am able to suggest matters for future agendas or the work programme, so I could actually put this forward if the meeting wants me to do so, via the chair of the Health Scrutiny Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryant. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small point. Herts Links is not this council, it is Hertfordshire County Council. And as this is being recorded and streamed, I just wanted to make that point. This council is not involved in any shape or form with Herts Links. That's a separate service that they funded through government money, and it is supplying one hell of a service across the district, and it's expanding, which is a good thing.
Accepted.
Just to clarify the point just made there, the Herts Links bus service was created by North Herts District Council by the current joint administration. It was invented, the idea came from the transport officer at this council and was later put forward and funded by Herts County Council, who took it and ran with it. But the idea came from this joint administration.
I don't believe that is quite accurate, but I will happily double check that after the meeting. Thank you. Right. At the moment, I do not have any formal recommendations that have been made. On the basis that nothing has been recommended for this referral, we will move on. Councillor Collins.
Chair, I did make a recommendation. I left it to you to decide what to do with, whether we do it informally or whether it needs proposing or seconding.
You didn't actually make a recommendation. You said if it was chosen to be. A recommendation hasn't been made. Nobody has made a formal recommendation. Councillor Bryant has given us the option to refer it to the body that she stands on. If that is something that we would like to have as a recommendation, if someone would like to second Councillor Bryant, we can definitely do that. Councillor Billing.
Happy to do that. It's terrific that we do have the link now with the Health Scrutiny Committee. I also do a lot of work with them. We'll be happy to work with Councillor Bryant on taking this forward.
Councillor Fake.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, clearly I've spoken on this issue before, but just for clarification, I had the privilege to chair the topic group in respect of access to GP surgery, as I am a county councillor. So clearly, the impact of scrutiny committee will look at every single issue that we, as a county council, have put through scrutiny. So it will automatically come up, but I have absolutely no problem whatsoever in it being referred as a specific item, and I would support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fake. Councillor Bryant, your
So I will take this to the next meeting, and at the point at which they're actually taking topics, I'll ask them to add the topic to the list. This is for rural surgeries.
Thank you, Councillor Bryant. In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder. Can we please take this to the vote?
Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Item 8B, referral from Cabinet on the 13th of September 2022, the medium-term financial strategy. I will take this referral with agenda item 9. 8C, referral from Cabinet on 13th of September 2022, soft play investment at North Herts Leisure Centre. Can I invite Councillor Dennis Harburg to present the referral from Cabinet?
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. I think, though, I might rather pass over to Councillor Jarvis, given this is one that sits within his portfolio and he has substantive knowledge on it and will assist better.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a matter that's been referred to the council to provide some additional capital. Over the life of the North Herts Leisure Centre, there have been a number of changes made to the way in which we use the available space in the building to reflect changing needs and to make sure that we make the best use of the space for the benefit of as many of our residents as possible. This current proposal proposes to replace 2 of the 4 squash courts and a third set of changing rooms with a soft play area. The squash courts are very little used, something like 18% of the available slots are used. And this will provide a facility that will provide a real benefit, both to parents who are looking for their children to be able to use the facility while they're using other parts of the leisure centre, and for those who just want to use them for soft play. From a financial point of view, there is a very satisfactory rate of return, so it's financially advantageous and will mean that a part of the leisure centre that is currently used very little will be used a lot more and provide benefit to many more people. In order to do that, we need to make 2 changes to the capital programme. We need to find an additional £150,000 from the capital programme this year, and we need to reallocate £100,000 that was allocated for the refurbishment of the changing rooms that will disappear as a result of this, to fund the conversion of the building and the installation of the soft play equipment. So I'd like to propose to council that we make an addition of 150k to the capital programme in 2023, and the council moves the existing capital allocation of 100k in 2023 for the refurbishment of dry side changing rooms in 22-23 and reallocate it to the soft play project.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. We have the proposal from you. May I have a seconder? Councillor Weeder will second. We go to the debate. First, I have Councillor Frost.
Yeah. I just want to say that I do think this is a great idea with 2 young children myself, and having just had my eldest son's birthday party at a soft play in Hitchin. I think it's great to see that we're investing the money into our facilities to bring them up to date with the needs and the wants of our community. I think it's a really good idea, and I wholeheartedly support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Frost. Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Chair. I had one question around the squash court usage. Reason being is 18% of capacity sounds very low, but it says occasional peaks. Do we have any idea how much is actually being used in the evenings and weekends when people who actually be playing squash would actually be able to use the facilities, and were any alternative sort of options looked at about renovating the squash courts to make it available to be opened up and then used during the day through those closed times, or was that not looked into? Reason I ask is I have had one resident ask me, and they're quite concerned because there seems to be periods where it's very hard to book a squash court, and I'm just wondering, how much that's going to affect some users of the service. But I'm not against having soft play equipment. I used to run children's parties at a leisure centre. They are fantastic, so I'm not against soft play. Just wondering what options were looked into.
Are you happy to come back on that, Councillor Jarvis?
I am, yes. I mean, clearly there will be a reduction in the total number of squash courts, and there will be some occasions when currently more than 2 courts are used, but those occasions are relatively few and far between. So it would be wrong of me to pretend that there are no downsides for this. There will be a few occasions when people will have to play squash at a different time. There are other squash courts in North Hart, so the number in total is fairly small. But this change will enable many more people to benefit from the facilities of the leisure centre. And on that basis, I think it's the direction in which we should be going.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chairman. I just also like to add my support to the soft play being installed, because obviously, again, it's something I've seen for years. And normally it's the actual people that run the centres dragging equipment out so that it can be used by the children. So actually installing it on a full-time basis is an excellent idea. I only hope this can be rolled out to other facilities.
Councillor Strong.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Or do I call you Chairman or Vice Chairman? I'm not quite sure when your Vice Chairman is chairing, but never mind. I would support this. I think it's the utilisation, but I do understand that for squash players, that will mean that there's a pressure on courts throughout the district, and there are other facilities. Perhaps we should also be looking at where there are squash courts, and I'm going to do a plug for the Ickleford. There's a couple of the squash courts there, but again, sort of invite the squash players to look, at where there are other courts that they could go and use. And again, I know that Ickleford sometimes is often saying that they don't have a lot of usage of their own courts. So there's perhaps an opportunity that the community running their sports facility might get something out of this.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, it's Chair. Thank you. Right. We have gone through the recommendation that the council make the addition of £150,000 to the capital programme in 22-23, that the council move the existing capital allowance of £100,000 in 23-24 for refurbishment of the dry side changing rooms to 22-23 and reallocate it to the soft play project. Please can we go to the vote?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Wonderful, thank you. Item number 9, the medium-term financial strategy. Can I invite Councillor Ian Albert to present the report and the referral 8B from Cabinet?
Thanks, Chair. And I'd like to, as I say, move recommendation 2.1 on page 25 of the report, and to thank Ian Cooper and his team for all their work, as usual, on the medium-term financial strategy. The backdrop, obviously, for this report is the recovery from COVID, the continuing impact of that, and of course now the energy crisis and high inflation costs. And the nature of a financial strategy has to be prudent and cautious. It has to recognise that the room for new investments is limited, and that in the future we will need to look for efficiencies, savings, and generate further income. However, a positive in the report is that we start out with a high general fund balance. We also have some other reserves which are safe to release into the general fund. This gives some ability to smooth out some bumps and gives them time to plan, but always noting we can only spend our reserves once. Turning to the appendix on page 30, Appendix A, Page 32 of the pack covers the impacts from COVID, and we're still going to set aside an amount in 23-24 to cover that continued recovery. Some areas are recovering well. Short stay car park income is getting back towards pre-COVID levels, but season tickets and long stay car parks are still much lower than pre-COVID levels. However, leisure has recovered well, but we need to recognise, obviously, with the cost of living crisis, what the impacts might be. Page 33 to 35 looks at the impacts of inflation, the cost of providing our contracted services, pay inflation, policies around fees and charges. We're looking at just under 10% increase in waste contracts moving into this current year, May 2022, and we're currently assuming a similar increase for next year. This increase has primarily been driven by fuel inflation. Pay inflation for 22-23 is now based on the offer from employers to the unions. There's a forecast of another 4% increase in 23-24. Clearly, our old policies around fees and charges and for inflation will no longer work, as they've been based on CPI plus 2% for a long time. We're still working on the basis that it's right to seek cost recovery, and we had a very useful meeting, Steve Jarvis and I, with the Hitchin Allotments Association, in recognising that allotments and other services, whilst cost recovery is right, it's also right to make sure that we actually have got the right base and the right modelling to actually make sure that the charge is fair and proper. However, all our fees and charges, we've had to make some difficult decisions, but we have decided that, for example, parking and garden waste charges, which are currently sitting at a 2% increase per year in our forecast in the plan. We think the market can bear a 10% on trade waste charges, which is in line with the increase that we're paying. We're currently consulting, as colleagues would know, on the new council tax reduction scheme, and this will come to the council in January. There may be some small increase in cost, but we think that the new scheme is both fair and actually will be a real benefit to many of our residents most in need. On waste, and page 35, there is expected to be some government changes to the way waste is collected, in terms of what materials have to be collected. Additionally, expected to be a deposit return scheme. So these are uncertain changes of now, and so we're clearly looking at our waste contract retendering and make sure it's fit for purpose in terms of what may come out from government. 36 and 37 on the pages look at our various projects in the council delivery plan. I'd like to thank the Overview at the Scrutiny Committee for their consideration of that, and we'll certainly be picking up some of their ideas around the changes to that council delivery plan and the reports there. On funding, our future funding is predominantly set by government, either directly in terms of business rates that we can retain, or indirectly in terms of limits on how much we can increase council tax. We expect that limit to continue to be around 2%. Council tax makes around 70% of our funding, so it adds to the pressures if it's not changing. There's uncertainty around a new funding formula. We expect that won't come now till 25, 26, and we need to obviously both budget and forecast for that and recognise the potential impacts. In terms of future funding and plans, well, as I say, we have healthy level of general reserves, and the plan will be used to mitigate the impacts. And it's important to note that the forecast need for substantial annual savings, though, of around 2.6 million over the next 5 years. Over the last 10 years, we've already saved £11 million. That's positive, but potentially we need to make further savings or find efficiencies. We're looking at transformation. And we're trying to use our reserves to delay the point at which we would have to cut service levels or find additional income. Our aim is that we make these big decisions when we have more funding certainty. We think that's prudent and the right way forward. And also, hopefully, our residents to be in a better place to deal with our changes to services, and also time to plan what those will look like and do public consultations. Talk to our residents about this. As I said earlier, the capacity for cost increases and investments on new service initiatives is limited, but we will look to see where we can, and where necessary, we will need to offset those by finding other income. Clearly, obviously, this focus is mainly on the revenue budget, but where obviously there are capital components, we need to recognise that there will come a time at some point that we will run eventually out of our current capital receipts, potentially by the end of this plan period. And so obviously with interest rates increasing, that's something we need to take account of. So colleagues, I'd like to move, I think, the medium-term financial strategy. As I said earlier, it's both a prudent and cautious document, and one I think that's the right way forward to adopt, to actually help to balance our books, benefit our residents, and I think make sure that this council is in a position to actually meet the needs and the difficult times ahead for many of our residents, community and businesses. I move.
Thank you very much. Councillor Albert has moved the recommendation. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Dennis Harbour? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
We shall move on to the debate, and we shall start with Councillor Thake.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Can I just raise a matter of clarification, really, in terms of the amount that we currently provide to the parish and town and community councils, which is modest, 39,000. I don't actually recognise the localisation of council tax support. Was that what we used to call concurrent functions, perchance? Or am I so old that in any event, I think it was concurrent functions. But anyway, the point here is I am reading perhaps too much in there. What I'm really reading in there is that eventually we will extinguish this, and we'd like to extinguish it quicker than actually the reduction in government funding might allow us to do so. Is there a proposal to extinguish that and ask those parishes to actually raise their precepts to deal with it so that we can actually extinguish this residual amount that we pay?
Councillor Albert.
So the proposal is certainly for the coming financial year that we would continue to pay that 38,000, but clearly that is something, and I've said this I think on previous occasions when moving this paper and indeed the budget report itself, that will come a time when we're no longer able to do that. But it is our proposal for this next financial year that we would continue with that payment.
Yes, you can come back on
that.
I
thank you for that, and I'm grateful that we make that proposal. But I think, frankly, we need to be transparent here. There's a clear indication, as far as I read this, that it will be extinguished, and that is where we're going. And I think we need to advertise that as without any equivocation. So I would be grateful if at some stage we could make that clear that essentially this is going to disappear, and that the parishes need to look to their precepting to ensure that they are not left short.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thake. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you. Hang on, Chair. Sorry. Old habits die hard. Right, it's quite simple for me. Inflationary car parking charges. It's such an emotive issue in Royston, and always has been. I mean, you can put them up 5p, 10p, and suddenly you're lobbied for weeks with people complaining. This time around, obviously, the haste that it was done in, I had an email and I didn't have time to actually put together a constituted meeting whereby we could discuss at area committee with district councillors and county councillors and make a referral to cabinet. I had to do an email effectively to cabinet from myself. Now, the thing is, last year it was an email round for obvious reasons because of what we were going through. But I think time should be given for district to actually allow its area committees to discuss things like this before it actually goes to cabinet. Now, myself, I did an email and asked for it be noted and actually logged into the minutes. I was assured by an officer it would be. Our county councillor, Fiona Hill, did exactly the same thing and had the same assurance, and it wasn't. It was half referred to, but it was pushed to one side. And at the moment, I think with what our residents are going through, with the cost of living crisis and the hardships that they're meeting, I know it seems a small item of 10 pence on an hour, but every little adds up to a point where people suffer even more. And even though these items are small in comparison to the actual budget itself, I think it should be going to area committees to discuss. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the difficulties at the moment with the inflation rate and the problems with balancing the budget. However, there's a couple of items in here that I can't possibly support. Businesses throughout this district and throughout the country are suffering from increased costs and really suffering. Energy being the main one, although the recent announcements from government have gone some way towards helping towards that. But a 10% increase on trade waste is going to put a further burden on those small businesses locally. And I'm one of those small businesses, so I'm declaring an interest in that way. Parking charges. Our town centres are still suffering post-pandemic from the recovery. We've seen a drop in the number of people using the town centre. Although we've seen the short stay parking increasing, I think Councillor Albert said long stay and season tickets are still way behind. A lot more people are working from home, so that's probably a good reason why I'm not being used. I think increasing car parking charges at this particular time, increasing trade waste is not a good move. It's time we did act on some of those alternatives we looked at on car parking. We've looked in the past, and I can refer back to 2019 when myself and some officers visited ParkX, looking at pay on exit and other systems, and we actually got quotes from companies to implement that system. So that's been on the table and the option's been there for some time. The money's been in the budget for a long time. Nothing's moved on it. Perhaps it's time we actually took action on that. And even looking at, we've had offers for other companies to take on our one of our loss-making multi-storey car parks. That's not been actioned. So I can't possibly support this with these things in it. And last thing I will mention is garden waste. I say this every time we bring it up. So the current administration, before they took over in their election leaflets, said they were going to abolish the bin tax. A quote from one of them: "If elected, we will abolish the Tory bin tax." Instead, they've increased it twice. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to respond to Councillors Hunter and Councillor Levitt. So first of all, I'd like to say that the comments that Councillor Hunter submitted together with County Councillor Fiona Hill, the comments of the Royston Town Council and the comments of Royston First Bid were all included in an addendum to the Cabinet papers. So they were published ahead of the Cabinet meeting. So they were all recorded and available for people to read, and they were taken into account when the Cabinet made their decision. Secondly, all chairs of area committees received an email on the 19th of August from our officer, Louise Symes, with the proposals for the increase in parking charges, and were asked to comment. Now, ideally, I do agree with Councillor Hunter, ideally that should be done in the cycle of meetings. Royston Town Council managed to do that. Royston First Bid managed to do that, but unfortunately, because of the cycle of meetings, we weren't able to do that as a district committee. However, the decision was made at Cabinet on the 13th of September, and Councillor Hunter received an email on the 19th of August. That should have been given adequate time to email all the members of the committee for a response via email. Addressing Councillor Levitt's comments around alternative payment methods, we are moving forward on that. We've just recently had a report from a consultant looking at alternative payment methods. I've had discussions together with my deputy and the officers around that. We are looking to trial some pay on exits and looking at our strategy for future payment methods. So that is moving forward. And finally, increasing in parking charges. This is never popular. It's never going to be popular. However, we have a situation where we need to be able to balance our budget. And we are not increasing all charges. We are only increasing the 1 hour charge. I think it's important to make that point. As Councillor Levitt pointed out, the short stay is not a problem. It's the longer stay that's underutilised. And I think with the climate emergency and the move towards sustainable travel, we need to be closing the gap between short and long stay to encourage people to stay in our town centres for longer. It's very well evidenced that when people park for longer, they spend more money. So by putting a slightly higher percentage increase on the 1 hour charge, which overall works out as just under 2%, I think it's 1.9% across the board, which the target is 2%. This means that we are encouraging people, hopefully by closing the gap a little bit between 1 hour and 2 hour, for people to think maybe I'd stay for 2 hours and spend a bit more money in town. So we do want to promote business. We do want to encourage our town centre recovery, and we want prosperous town centres. And we felt this was the best compromise to do that. I know parking raises are never popular, but I feel this was a positive way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Chair. I would echo the thoughts of David Levitt and Tony Hunter on this particular issue, or this particular paper, sorry. I was quite surprised that we weren't given the option to actually have a meeting, particularly around the parking charges in Royston. I understand the rest of the district having an inflationary increase. I think the difference in Royston, firstly, as Councillor Hunter said, it's quite an emotive subject in Royston, but it was a 16.67% increase, I think, in price for the 1 hour stay. It was quite a big leap for a 1 hour stay. And I understand the reason why we say we want people to stay longer. We want people to spend more money on our town centres. That's great. But at a point in time where there is a cost of living crisis, that is a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. One of the North Herts priorities is people first. People make North Herts work. We value our residents, businesses, staff, contractors, councillors and other partners and place them at the heart of everything we do. I think it's quite detrimental to people in Royston having to pay so much more in comparison. As Tony said earlier, it's only a little bit, but it adds up. I think it's going to prevent people or stop people from going into Royston, spending money in the small shops when we do have a large cost of coffee on the outskirts of town. One of the things that people mentioned was, spend more money in the coffee shop, stay a little bit longer. I think it just prevents people from wanting to do that and going to larger chains, which means less money for the local community, full stop. So I'm completely against this as a result. I think the other thing I would also say is, again, the brown bin charge. We're bringing in a new contract in the coming future, increasing brown bin charges again. Particularly when the current administration did say that they were going to remove the Tory bin tax, as Councillor Levitt said, does seem a tad strange. It's happened again, and I'm not entirely sure why, based on that election literature. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Harber.
Oh gosh, I wasn't expecting you to come to me so quickly, Chair, but thank you very much for that. I think I hear what's being said, and I appreciate that even a de minimis increase of an amount such as 10p can cause significant impact in certain areas. However, I think it is important perhaps for me to pick up some of the items in particular around waste that have been discussed today. As Councillor Levitt will be aware, of course, it was not this administration which introduced the principle of charging for garden waste. And as members will be aware and have heard me say many times, every time this issue comes up, once we were locked into this contract by the previous administration, it would cost us significantly more to remove that charge and effectively to remove that service from residents. And we do know that is a service which our residents value. I believe Councillor Compton was present in the waste workshops as well, where we discussed at length matters such as harmonising across North Herts and East Herts, should we continue to work in partnership with each other, which does deliver cost savings to our residents, things like the commercial waste collection charges. And of course, as Councillor Levitt will be aware, as a business owner, there is a free market for waste collection. So if this council, needing to cover its operating costs as it does and having quite a small market to play with compared to companies like Biffa, is charging more than a particular business feels it is able to afford, those businesses have alternate options. Much as we would very much like to keep our customer base, there is only so much as a public sector organisation rather than a limited company that we are able to do. So we must be mindful in our pricing and planning that we are running a service which is financially sustainable and economically viable, so as not to disadvantage the people that this council serves. I'm not sure why election literature from many years ago, when this council operates on an annual election cycle or 3 yearly election cycle, keeps cropping up, because parties' manifestos do change every single year. So I do hope that this is the last time we need to have this conversation. Nothing within the proposals for the contract going forward in waste is set in stone. The workshops have been had, they were held cross-party. There was also a update and briefing session that members were free to attend. I was saddened to see quite low attendance actually from certain parties at that particular session. However, the reports and recommendations will go before overview and scrutiny, and they will be discussed clearly in Cabinet and through the council process as always. So everybody has the opportunity to feed in. And again, if there are any concerns, what we're trying to do is to deliver a service that is efficient, that can provide those savings. Bearing in mind, waste is the most expensive thing in the budget. So I think Ian has a headache a lot of the time when we're trying to identify places where we can find those efficiencies, given that this Conservative government doesn't understand the pressures local government is under. So I think, colleagues, if you remain concerned about a charge which you brought in originally and have locked us into, maybe talk to your colleagues in Westminster and let's stop repeating ourselves on this issue, please.
Councillor Willoughby.
Thank you, Chair. I don't believe I'm as equipped as my colleague Councillor Albert to speak on facts and figures, but I will argue the case that while we are increasing costs and across, it is imperative that we, and I want to avoid going onto a soapbox as mentioned before, but it's imperative that we continue to be able to offer vital services to people in our district. And to do that, we have to increase charges in different areas to be able to do that. There are statutory requirements, but there are also people who are relying on things that we choose to provide. I would also echo the sentiment that Councillor Dennis Harburg, if you are so worried about the funding of local government, you really need to talk to your colleagues in Westminster. That is the only way you're going to make a difference against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willoughby. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think I was very intrigued to hear Councillor Dennis Harburg there confirming, which I think we'd all knew, that in those election leaflets, they were actually promising something they couldn't deliver. So it's nice to hear that now on the public record. What I would like to make a couple of comments on is on the car parking charges. And sorry, excuse me. Having heard members from the administration telling us, they're regretting putting up car parking charges, but they want to try and encourage longer staying in our towns. And if that is the case, then why aren't we looking at reducing the long stay charge, or maybe increasing the hours that you actually get for paying that? Because I think, as we know, a lot of the car parks are not at capacity. And maybe that is a way, again, that we can look to help our residents and encourage them to go into the towns more. I have to say, I'm not surprised that the season tickets and some of the long stay car parks, particularly those that were used around the station, are not as well used, because, as we know, many more people are working around in the district. And in fact, if we do go into town, we actually see them in the town working
in coffee shops, because a lot of employers have recognised that if they've got home workers, that they can go and actually have different places of work to go to. But the other things I actually wanted to draw attention to, and this is where my machine goes off and I can't get it back on, and that was in the projects, and there's the Churchgate project is in there, and it says there's going to be a report, and I'd perhaps like to ask the portfolio holder for Enterprise, as it's now called, when is this report likely to be seen? Do we have any sort of timescales on that? And also it talks about the Churchgate area. I'm just interested to know what is the sizing of the area that is going to be considered? Are we talking of some of the original areas before, that includes the Port Mill car parks, the Biggin car parks, in that? Thank you.
Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we need to be clear about the statements that are being made about what was or wasn't promised in terms of brown bin charges. So in 2018, the Conservatives announced that they were going to start charging for emptying brown bins, despite the fact that the majority of the public had told them they didn't want to. In the election that year, I think both the Labour and Liberal Democrat campaigns said that they would not proceed with that if they were elected. Regrettably, not enough of us were elected to achieve that year, and the Conservatives proceeded to introduce the charge that they're now complaining about. In 2019, when we did win enough seats to get control of the council between us in our joint administration, we didn't make that promise, because the Conservatives had introduced the charge, and, as has been explained, had entered into a contract to deliver the service, assuming that the charge was received. So I think we need to put that straight. I think the other thing I'd like to say something about is the whole question of car park charges. And whereas I accept that nobody likes to pay more money, the fact is that in real terms, anyone staying more than an hour will pay significantly less than they are at the moment. And even people who stay an hour will pay less in real terms than they are at the moment. Now, some of the Conservatives members have expressed real concern about the ability of people to pay those increased charges where they have been increased. And there will undoubtedly be people across the district who are really struggling. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that those who are struggling most probably don't pay car park charges because they probably don't travel to our town centres by car. The fact is that we need to consider how we make it possible for people to travel to our town centres, how we make it desirable for them to travel, and how we persuade them to stay there once they're there. And these changes provide a very small increase in charges for people who come to our town centres and don't stay very long. If instead of coming twice for an hour, they come once for 2 hours, they will reduce their carbon emissions, they will probably spend more in our town centres, and they'll pay less for the car park. And if we can encourage people to do that, everybody will benefit.
Councillor Hoskins.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Strong asked me to respond on Churchgate, which I'm more than happy to do. As she will know, it's only been in the remit of the local authority for 7 weeks now, I think. So it's still early days. We will, of course, set up in due course a project board and a project group. We would anticipate reporting, as we regularly do, to overview and scrutiny with an information note on all the activity, and that will now obviously include Churchgate as a major thrust of what we're trying to do. We would also, of course, provide information notes to the Hitchin Committee. As for coming to full council with the report, I think if we get the project board up and running, I would imagine there would be an interim report to full council very early in the new year, probably in January. Councillor Strong also asked about the scope of what we might be planning. Well, I have to say we're not planning anything at the moment because we're starting with a blank sheet of paper. If we go back to the infamous days of previous developers looking at Churchgate, of course, retailing and town centres have changed astronomically since then. And as we've said before, it's not all about retailing. I believe that residents and indeed businesses themselves will be looking at a mix of uses to include social use, which is something that private developers could never really provide because, of course, it didn't provide them with the necessary profit. This council is very committed to social investment, so I'm looking forward to the ideas that will come forward from the community and from businesses once we start an ongoing dialogue with them, which I would hope would be within the next couple of months.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskins. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. Having those of us who were at the February budget setting meeting and are here tonight probably reminded of the film Groundhog Day. What happens in this version is my good friend Councillor Albert presents a coherent, sensible, balanced budget, and then various Conservative members proceed to hark on about a minimal increase in bin charges that they themselves introduced. I would probably say to Councillor Albert, if that's the worst criticism people can find of this document, I think you should pat yourself on the back, because as in February, you've produced an extremely good strategy. And I would, in the interest of trying to be helpful across parties, I would seriously suggest to the Conservative members, if you want to be considered as a serious opposition to this administration, spend the time between now and February coming up with a coherent alternative economic strategy and not harking on about the bin, please.
Councillor Munson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to reference Councillor Hoskins' comments there. It's disappointing that this administration appears, and I'm more than happy to be corrected, that they've spent millions of pounds on the Churchgate development without actually having a clear plan on what to do with it. It just doesn't make financial sense, quite frankly. I think we all understand the impact of the cost of living crisis and high inflation rates. I think whether it be individual households, companies, or councils, we all have been impacted in our own ways. I think, therefore, it's imperative that we focus not only on recovery, but we focus also on going through growth. And as an authority, we should be supporting businesses during this difficult time by encouraging more people into our town centres. The increase in car parking charges is anti-growth, and it's only contributing more to the cost of living crisis.
I would highly recommend this council against going for broke. Councillor Plater.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reference the comments made by Councillor Munster just then, and just to say that, yes, while there are no solid plans on Churchgate at the moment, I think that it's imperative, and the council agrees, that we go out and that we consult with residents in Hitchin and store owners and other stakeholders across the district about what they want from Churchgate and how we move forward in a way that is actually going to make a positive difference with the redevelopment of Churchgate to Hitchin. I'd also like to say that echo the comments made by Councillor Mason in that this is a fantastic strategy and one that I wholeheartedly support. Thank you very much.
Councillor Billing. Judy Billing.
I'm just going to check whether it was me or Claire. I need to be careful because I can actually remember being a new councillor a long time ago who felt massively patronised by older councillors. And so I must be very, very careful indeed not to patronise anybody. Nevertheless,
Go on.
nevertheless, Councillor Munster, for you to sit there and talk about money possibly being wasted when some of us have lived through the Conservative administration waste of money over Churchgate over many, many years. Hundreds of thousands of pounds were wasted on schemes that could never, ever come to fruition. And don't even get me started on the town hall and the money that the Conservative administration of this council wasted, at least £500,000 on false starts and bad planning and absolutely disastrous financial plans. So Councillor Munzer, it's lovely to have you here. It's lovely to have new young councillors on the council. And I really don't want to patronise anybody, but don't tell us after 4 months, 5 months about wastes of money about which you know absolutely nothing.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to completely endorse and echo the comments of Councillor Billing and Councillor Mason, absolutely 100%. And just to add to those comments, Hitchin is the economic and cultural capital of North Hertfordshire. It drives the economy in our towns, right across our district. It brings in an awful lot of money. You're talking about the car parking charges. The car parks in Hitchin subsidise the cost of the entire parking service across the district. Churchgate is far from a waste of money. It should be the shining jewel in the crown of North Hertfordshire, as we can bring in people from right out across the area, the region, and even internationally to our area. I was up at Luton Airport recently as part of one of my other council roles, and talking to the management there about finding ways to promote North Hertfordshire to people visiting from other countries, and having a great facility at Churchgate and the museum and the wonderful facility that has become after all of those wasted time and money from the Conservative administration. I think it's fantastic to see what's in this document, and I think we should all wholly endorse it. So thank you for those words, Councillor Billing, Councillor Mason. They were absolutely spot on.
Right. We've had the recommendation. We have a seconder. We will go to the recommendation that the council adopt the medium-term financial. You do have right to reply, and I have had since another request come up, so I shall allow that one. With your right to reply, I will allow that one first and then give you a right to reply. So Councillor Compton, you have already spoken. What order?
Question around the cabinet recommendation.
What point of order?
Oh, it's a very good question. I was actually just double checking what the recommendation was.
I'm literally about to read it out.
I didn't necessarily agree with it.
Thank you. No, unless you actually have the point of order, that's what it is. Thank you. Councillor Albert.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Mason had it right about Groundhog Day. It was sort of deja vu revisited. I think it was that sort of I wasn't sure whether we were talking the budget or whether we were actually discussing the medium-term financial strategy. But we ranged and roved far and wide. An interesting debate, though it was. I think I draw Councillor Levitt's. And I think Councillor Dennis Harburg covered it really well in terms of the waste charge. There's a judgment call there, but the reality is here's a service where we're faced with a significant increase in costs, and we think it's right that is passed on. It is a judgment. It is a judgment call. We think we've got that right. Clearly, you don't, but I believe that actually to do that is the right way forward, and actually is part of our balanced budget and our balanced view of actually getting the right services and the right income for the council. I think colleagues here have talked much about what is going to happen on 22-23 parking, not 23-24 parking, which is what actually this paper refers to, and that's why we wanted to actually suggest that our 2% increase for what would be the 23-24 and period going on, faced with an inflation of 10%, we actually think is something that benefits our community. But if I turn briefly, and Councillor Brown has covered this in some detail, to 22-23. What I'd say to Councillor Munster is, in terms of actually caring for our residents and caring for our businesses, one of the things that we have done is we've frozen season ticket charges. And for many people who have to work in our towns, work in the shops, work in the businesses in our town, we have frozen their season tickets. Faced with inflation that's running at 10%, that I think is a contribution actually towards and does benefit the people and residents of our town and benefits the businesses at our town. That's our contribution. In terms of I think of the garden waste charge, I think colleagues have got it right. It's actually in truth to say, we haven't actually increased it twice. Technically, colleagues, we haven't even increased it once because it doesn't actually go up till the 1st of October. But it will be going up 80p on the 1st of October in 22-23. But here again, we are talking about what we are proposing to do for 23-24, which again is a 2% increase, and we think that is the right way forward, looking at our medium-term financial strategy. And I think that is actually again benefiting residents. Other colleagues here, I think, have covered well. I think the misinformation about what was said and in election leaflets. Let me be absolutely clear, and you can go back and look at the records. I said when I introduced my first medium-term financial strategy back in autumn 2019 that we weren't able to remove the garden waste charge, and we had said that in the Labour and the Liberal Democrat manifesto, and I said that in the budget in February 20. I said it in the budget in February 21. I said that in the medium-term financial strategy. How many more times do I have to nail that lie? Because that's what it is. It is not true, and I do think, colleagues, and I do hope that we can actually finally end that particular debate. Let me conclude, Chair, by saying I think this is a balanced financial strategy. It actually, I think, will serve the council well, but more importantly, it will serve our residents well. It will serve our businesses well, to actually protect the services and our vital services, things that we are working with in our community, like food banks, our food provision networks that we have set up. These are the things that we need to protect. This strategy will do that. I commend it to the council, and I hope all colleagues will vote unanimously for it.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. The recommendation is the council adopt the medium-term financial strategy 2023-28 as attached at Appendix A. Can we please go to the vote?
Chair, that's carried.
Right, we have reached a point in the meeting where I intend to call a 5-minute comfort break. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to resume. Oh, right. Item 10, annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I invite the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Levitt, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be very brief. You have the report in front of you to read, so I shan't go reading it out. Just a number of little updates to it on the actual report itself. On page 49 of the agenda, 5.3, grateful to the executive members for making presentations. Can I add Councillor Ian Albert to that list as well, because he came to a number of our meetings in that year. So I'd like to add him there because we missed him off. On 9.2, where we're talking about proposals for new task and finish groups, the reports say they're still in progress. Since the report was written, and as an update now, we have set the scope for the communications task and finish group and set provisional dates, and we're looking for the people to make that task and finish group up at the moment. The waste is being dealt with, as we all know, by a different route, and will be discussed at an extraordinary meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 28th of this month. On item 11, about the peer review 2020, a further peer review has taken place earlier this year, but has not been reported on yet. That said, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to have it noted that Councillor Claire Strong's name is spelt correctly in this one. Do we have any questions for Councillor Levitt? Sorry, my apologies. My apologies. Councillor Levitt has moved the recommendation. Can I invite Councillor Val Bryant to second?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Debate. There is none. Does anyone have anything? No. In that case, we would like to move the recommendation that the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee 21-22, as attached at Appendix A, be noted. Can we please go to the vote?
Chair, that has carried.
A unanimous vote. Item 11 is the annual report of the Standards Committee. Can I invite the chair of the Standards Committee, Councillor Judy Billing, to present the report?
Can, Chair, although I will be very, very brief because you've all got the report in front of you, and I assume that everybody has read it. I would just say, I think that the members of the Standards Committee and the independent persons, as we like to call them, have had what I would call quite a quiet and reasonably contemplative year, in as much of our work has been to do with sifting through the new codes of conduct of the LGA, finding out the ways in which we wanted to mirror it and the ways in which we didn't, and having those conversations and some training. Not so for our officers, I'm afraid. They haven't had such a quiet and contemplative time because they continue to be bombarded by many complaints from a very few people, all of which get thoroughly investigated and sorted and evaluated. But it does take an enormous amount of work for our officers in the legal team. So my thanks to all of them, and particularly, of course, Jeanette, who bears the brunt of all of that. And I've got no more to say on the report, but happy to answer any questions, or more likely ask Jeanette to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Can I invite Councillor Ruth Brown to second the recommendation?
I was just about to do so. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second, and I would like to agree with the comments that have been made by Councillor Billing.
May we go to the debate, please? There is none. The recommendation is the Council receives and notes the annual report. My apologies, Councillor Davies.
I'm sorry, I was a little slow off the mark there. I was just wanted to echo the comments saying that thank our officers for the great amount of work they do on standards and dealing with the complaints we're receiving.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davies. The recommendation is the council receives and notes the annual report. May we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that has carried unanimously.
Item 12. Constitutional Amendment, Panel Approval and Appointment Report, Part 1. Can I invite the monitoring officer to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 points of clarification, first of all, where I've referred to commercial in Appendix A. Apologies for that, it should be enterprise. And throughout the document where there's reference to the standing order, it should be 4.8.23A. I'll repeat, that's the 23A throughout. If members are happy, Chair, I suggest that we deal first of all with the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2, and if members are then minded potentially to put any other proposals forward after that, then to go into the part 2 or closed session to deal with that, if that's acceptable.
Fine with that. May I have a proposer? Councillor Dennis Harbour.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very happy to propose that suggestion.
I'm happy to second that.
May we go to the debate, please? There is no debate. No, Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I would not really debate, but I think just a comment. Yes, I'm quite happy to see the setup of this transport panel, and perhaps, as we had the debate earlier about transport in rural areas, perhaps that's an item that they maybe would like to look at for the council in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is the council approves the amendments detailed in Appendix A and the transport panel's terms of reference Appendix B. Item 2, we're putting across. And items. Part 2 approves the members' appointment and co-chairs to the extent necessary to the transport panel as detailed in 8.3 to 8.4. Can we go to the votes, please?
Chair, that has carried unanimously.
Thank you. Section 13, exclusion of press and public. I propose that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 5 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A and of the said Act as amended. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dennis Harbour.
Yes, Chair, happy to second.
Debate. May we go to the vote, please?
That's carried. Chair.
Thank you. The meeting will now go into a private session. Any press and public in the Right, now that we are back in part one, thank you everybody on YouTube that was waiting. I will reread that section. That full council, having taken the part 2 report and Mr. Peter Oldham QC's advice into account, instructs the Service Director, Legal and Community to draft an amendment to the Constitution in consultation with group leaders regarding the removal of Council Procedure 4.8.23a, with the exception of regulatory and disciplinary committees, as well as certain statutory matters of full council, and present that wording to the next full council meeting on the 10th of November. I need a proposer for this, Councillor Dennis Harburg, and I need a seconder for this, Councillor Ruth Brown. Please, can we go to the vote in part 1?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance this evening. The business of the council is concluded and this meeting is closed.